Next, we'll move on to Jordy. So let me just do your quick intro, Jordy. Thank you for joining me from out of town.
No, I'm in Buffalo.
Oh, you are in Buffalo. Okay.
Yeah. I'm in Buffalo.
Well, you picked a good time of year to be here. So, Jordy too has been with Launch New York for years, and anybody who knows what Jordy's been doing is it's making this ecosystem happen. So, as managing partner of amazing SoftBank New York and C Capital Partners, he's taken it right down to the startup level as well. Through Z80, 43 North, and again, having him part of Launch New York's helping us really move to kind of new directions and respond in the kind of environment we're in today. So Jordy's going to talk a bit about the startup scene and investment in Western New York, all the way to national trends. So take it away, Jordy.
Great. I'll try to keep it in time. Thanks, Marnie. I'm pleased to do this, and I have to say that what Marnie and Launch New York have evolved into and what they've accomplished, it's probably now, I guess it's got to be about 10 years since we started this thing. Frankly, 43 North is one of the things that came out of, in some small way, Launch New York. But it is a part of an ecosystem that didn't exist in New York State for a very long time. And over the last decade, that world has changed pretty dramatically. And I think it's a testament to the people on this call and the work they're all doing that we now have an ecosystem in upstate New York, particularly, that is actually thriving and growing rapidly. And that is really important to the creation of jobs and futures for our young New Yorkers. So I applaud Marnie and the team for what they've done. I want to sort of talk a little bit about, if I can, I'm going to title what I'm going to say, a few words, excuses. There's a lot of people that have, over the year, I've been doing this since 1999 when we first, with Masa, started our first early stage fund together. And I've watched for 21 years as the world's evolved, and certainly SoftBank sure has. But what's happened is people have often used upstate New York as a tool to say that we can't get a startup done here. And I am here to tell you that that's really not correct. That has changed dramatically. And the only reason that you can't get your startup up and running is you should be looking in the mirror. We now have funds littered throughout upstate New York. Zach has been for a long time doing this in Ithaca, of course, but Somac is in Syracuse, and Brad's for Luga, and they're in Albany, and there's people in and Teresa and folks in Rochester, and of course there's a lot of people in Buffalo, and throughout the state there's money. VCs will come, they will take a look, they will show up. Because it's been proven that companies can grow and build in upstate New York. And so when one wants to complain, they should really look at themselves as opposed to the ecosystem. When it's, and I think Zach touched on it, I think maybe there is a lack of some maturity because we don't have historically successful entrepreneurs in the technology and in the life sciences world as we do in the business world. We clearly have a history of entrepreneurs in upstate New York that may be second to none. Unfortunately, a lot of them haven't done much in the last 40 years, but for a long time, it was the ecosystem of startups and building successful companies, and starting no less than the Kodaks and the Xeroxes of the world. But I want to just talk a little bit about what's happened and people using the excuse of coronavirus. Yes, we all got thrown for a loop. But the companies that were well run, well positioned, properly funded, and frankly, responded appropriately have done pretty well, and some extraordinarily well. I'm going to just tell you about a few in our portfolio. One of the companies that I thought we were dead in the water when this happened was BuzzFeed, because BuzzFeed, which invented native and has effectively been a media company, I'm figuring that media is going to be a real soft commodity during coronavirus, and it is. I would say revenue on the media side is off 25%. You saw the other day, Unilever, I think it was, announced they are no longer doing any advertising through the end of the year. But what they did, and they have evolved over time, is to sit there and figure out that we can't be only a media company. They have an e-commerce business. They now have an e-commerce business that does over $200 million a year in revenue, because they took advantage of an audience that they had, and they said, what else can we do with that audience besides sell them ads? And during this pandemic, our business has absolutely boomed because people are shopping from home. Had we not done that, had we not had the foresight, and I say we, I shouldn't say that, had the management team not done that, they would be in that position. You guys listened a little while ago to George, and I don't know how much he talked about ACV. But when the pandemic hit, we saw revenue off 80+%. But we made adjustments and decisions, but because of where we were positioned, we started gaining market share because we were the only place in town to be able to continue to sell cars. And so we started calling all the people that weren't our customers and saying, okay, you can't go to a physical auction, but now we can continue to sell your product when no one else can. And we started gaining market share at unprecedented levels. Today, ACV is bigger than they were when this started. I got another company called Zeal. We're in the massage therapy business. We go to people's homes and their offices and provide massage. Now, during this pandemic, who's getting one of those? It's not possible. CEO adjusted the company. The CEO took steps, and we started calling some of our corporate customers, and we basically did a pivot. And Walmart is a perfect example, said, we want you to provide these services online. And they gave us a $3 million contract over 3 months, $1 million a month. We went from going out of business to making 150 grand a month as we got through this pandemic. Again, management, making calls, making decisions, pivoting properly. This last one I want to tell you about is the one I absolutely was convinced was going out of business. It's a company called Domio. Domio is extended stay apartments. Domio is Airbnb meets WeWork. And I figured, okay, the hospitality world is dead. Dead, right? How are we going to do? We sit there, we have 3,200 apartments around the country, and no one's traveling. So, but the CEO read a story that Airbnb committed 13 million apartments to first responders and the government during the 90 days of the pandemic, called up a Airbnb CEO, and they took 50% of our entire inventory for the full 3 months, saved the company, allowed it to succeed. The reason I say this stuff, folks, is it's pretty simple. It's all about the team being able to respond and pivot. No excuses, it's like we're gonna figure out a way to make this work, and we're gonna figure out a way to survive. And frankly, these guys have, and they're thriving. That's the good news. So, when I sit here and listen to people talk about woe is me and all these problems, I'm really just want to challenge everybody to think harder, to think differently, to look at themselves and figure out, what could I do differently? Can I have access to capital? And I think Zach will attest to this, and Clayton can do it. And the New York State Investment Fund, we're going to do a deal in the next week. Where deals are getting done, and they're getting done because entrepreneurs are convincing investors that it makes sense to invest in their dream. And I just want to say to everyone, it's there, the ecosystem's there, the opportunities are there. We just got to just continue to take advantage of it and capitalize it. So that's sort of my 2 cents. I figured I might provoke a little bit of thought, but I don't know. Questions, comments?
Yeah, how about questions?
I guess it wasn't very good.
Now, so Jordy, I'm just curious. We found that, maybe a third of our companies very actively reached out to us and engaged with us and said, here's what's going on, here's what we're thinking, here's what we need. curious if you, were you getting a lot of proactive outreach from these companies to tell you what was happening?
Well, we have about 60 companies in the portfolio today. I would say that during the pandemic, we probably spoke to 90+% of them. Some of them went into hiding and maybe we'll never see them again. And yeah, I mean, but they didn't really want to hear what I had to say in a lot of cases, because when this first hit, and I go to March 19th, my response to these guys was, you better cut expenses, recognizing that you're probably not going to see a change in revenue the rest of this calendar year. And if you don't prepare for that, you're going to be an unhappy CEO because you're going to run out of money. And that was the conversation, and it was consistent with a couple of exceptions. I have a company called Talkspace. We're in the teletherapy space. And in that particular case, we wanted to sit there and say, let's pour it on. We actually, Roman is another one. We put $40 million extra into Roman because we said, at home, people can't go to a pharmacy. We're in the perfect position in order to serve the consumer. So we actually invested an extra $40 million in Roman. At Talkspace, we put another $25 million into the company because we saw the opportunity. But in most of the companies, it was retrench. They didn't really, many cases, Marnie, want to hear that because they don't want to make the tough decisions. I get it. Comes with the territory.
Yeah, those are big numbers, 40 million. Wow.
Oh yeah. No, but we're the traction is unbelievable. Talkspace is teletherapy. People are massively depressed. They have all kinds of issues as it relates to the coronavirus and staying at home. We're perfectly positioned for that. We're the leader in the category. So it's stupid to go into hiding. And so we took the opposite approach. But a lot of companies went into retrench because they had to. Let's live to see another day. And those were the ones that were probably the most difficult conversations.
Thanks so much for sharing that. I'll just open up the floor one more time before we let Jordy relax in what looks like a nice spot right there.
Not loud in the house.
Jordy, thank you so much. That's terrific.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck.
Right.
Be
Thank
safe.
you. Be well. All right.
Be safe.
Okay.